Welcome again to Rear Admiral retired Rowan Moffitt, who was previously Fleet Commander and Deputy Chief of the Australian Navy, and since retiring has been a consultant on strategy and related matters. In our last podcast, we talked about the possible meanings of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy flotilla that was undertaking what the former editor of the Australian Financial Review, Michael Stutchbury, described as possibly the most consequential circumnavigation of Australia since Matthew Flinders. One of the questions which we touched on at the end of our previous discussion was whether China's projection of its greatly enhanced capacity has serious implications for Australia's defence strategy. But even if the Chinese PLA-Navy had been nowhere near Australia in the past couple of weeks, the same questions would have been raised by the Trump administration's approach to dealings with its traditional allies in Europe and in North America, although they haven't specifically mentioned Australia in that context. I was looking up some figures from our own budget papers and international comparisons published by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. Australian government will be spending about 1.75% of GDP on defence this year and for the next 3 years covered by the 4-year forward estimates period. Rowan, I know you have some views about whether that's actually the best measure of the effort that Australia is making. Perhaps I can throw to you to share your reflections on some of those figures and on what you think might be some more appropriate measures.
Thanks very much, Saul. My own view is that the percentage of GDP as a metric is of very little value. The reason I say that is because it's the number that comes out at the end of the budget process as a consequence of that budget process. The government doesn't decide that it's going to select a number based on GDP, which varies, and say that's the amount of money that we're going to spend on our defence. They start at the other end with estimates of how much they think they need, which probably makes more sense.